started my project of converting a Syma X8 to run with Bugs 3 internals because I couldn't bear to see my first quadcopter sitting on a shelf gathering dust for 4.5 years. And I always assumed it was going to be a lot heavier than a Bugs 3. Both kitted out the same way, ready to fly apart from a battery and camera. That's what I found.
So that surprises me. So they're they're the same for weight basically. A big difference though, if you look at them, is the props. I'm running tri-blade, so I've got more sweep area than the normal Bugs 3 prop, but there's a hell of a difference. So looking at individual props, which I have here, that's the Syma prop, the way I cut it out to fly with, and that's your standard Bugs 3 prop there. The Syma props, which are dirt cheap by the way, come like this because it's an obsolete drain. I have to drill it out to 5mm through there, and I cut down the thickness a little bit too. On the top, not the bottom, because you want it to be flat, but I cut that down so the nut will go on it. But the crucial thing is, I was really concerned that these props, they're cheap, they're clunky looking, they mightn't be too well balanced. But have a look at this footage from the flight of the silver Syma, and I'm pretty impressed with how stable it is in the air with the GoPro hanging underneath. So with all that, that's why I've decided to have another look at my original Syma X8, the black one, and see if I can do a better job with it. So here's the X8 that I first built, and the basic problem was I never found a really good way to mount the motors. I was fixated on using the original parts, and it's heavy and clunky, and it's also started to damage the frame. By comparison, what I did with the silver one is I had them just on top, the way Steve B did it, so they're a lot lighter. So what I decided to do is to mount them on the top. I can't do it the same way because I've already drilled out holes for the motors. So what I'm doing is this. This lightweight aluminium, I can sit it in there like that, and I can take the Bugs 3 motor mount, as I did with the other ones, the silver one, and I can put it in there like that. I can glue it in, drill it through, so it'll look pretty much the same as it did before. The motor's partly recessed into the arm, but this time they'll be on a lightweight mount, properly glued on, and it should make all the difference. So while the top's off, you can see how I've got a camera mounted in there, and a separate transmitter, which is a better option than what I did with the silver one. The silver one I was just using up spare parts I had. This one I'm cutting the motor mounts out of. So nothing very elaborate, just thin aluminium, well, a lot thicker than the kind of foil you cook with, but still fairly thin. So I can cut that to suit. Okay, so that's the fourth and final one. That's the paper template I used to trace around. So I just need to cut out the little bumps where to fit the frame, and I can fit them. So I've got two of the motor holders glued in now. I've got a deconstructed motor here, and what I'm doing, I'm screwing the base on first, and then I can put the whole thing in and locate it properly in the slots. That's what I'm doing right now. Some of these screws may be a little on the long side, but I've since found out the specifications for these rather than just Bugs 3 screws. I now know the M2x6, that's 6mm M2, and they're 6mm long. There's another spec in terms of how many threads per millimetre or centimetre, but generally it's standard. So I'll just pop the top on it. and just making sure that it can spin freely before deciding to glue it in. So I've glued the motor mount, the aluminium flashing, thin flashing for motor mounts in, glued it in overnight, and this is what they look like. So I've just made the holes larger, and by coming through from the other side, these sort of things will act as washers. They'll be crushed a bit as I screw to do them up. So the next step is the motors. I've dismounted the first one, ready to cut the wires. I'd like not to have to keep cutting them, but I think it's the best way to go. But you can look at the difference in the way they're mounted. Quite complicated, and above all, heavy. It's probably the best way to go. So, on with the dance. Just make sure I get motors on the right place. So that's where the motor goes, and I've made these holes a little bit bigger, so the wire should just slip through there. Okay, in this case I need to bend this out a little bit, and then the wire should just slip under. What's he doing? And then the next step will be to screw it in, and with the plate on the back. So that's the first motor set. It's set down the arm a bit compared to the white one, the silver one, and that's the way it looks from the back with the Bugs 3 motor plate holding it. This is something I did with the silver one, just a little blob of glue. This is just to stop them vibrating loose. So I've now got everything wired up, and I'm just waiting for the liquid insulation to dry before I can fire it up for the first time and see how well it goes. It'll be slightly heavier because I've left those blisters that used to cover the lights on, but I've stripped out the lights with the LEDs because I'm not going to need them for anything. So the rain stopped, but it's still very windy, so just stepped outside for a moment to show off the two Symas with their Bugs 3 internals. So I'm about to try flying them in the media room just to give me an idea of what they sound like and compare it to a Bugs 3. So that's where I'm at. While the weather's still pretty ordinary outside, the plan is to do some testing, indoor testing of the new one, and also compare the sound with the other one, with the Bugs 3 and also with the earlier silver X8. Starting off with the standard controller just to calibrate. Although there's no lights. Next move is to go with the trusty jumper.